It's time to get to the defensive side of the ball. Today, we're talking edge rushers.
Inside, and a beauty! Hall running free! Brees Hall inside the 10! He's gonna score!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to be talking about the hardest position to evaluate in this year's draft. And what do I mean by that? We're going to be talking edge rushers, and I mean that there are legitimately, in this year's draft class, like 17 guys that are like really good edge rushers, like 17 guys that could arguably go in the first round at edge rusher, like in other years' drafts. This is by far and away the best edge rusher class I have ever seen in a draft. When I look at the depth of it, the high-end talent of it, everything like that. I have spent, and even up until the moment I made this list and I finalized my list, I have been bouncing these guys around. Who's number one? Who's number two? Who's number four? Who's number three? And like, I'm still looking at my list and trying to figure out what these guys are, because I honestly, I think the best thing to say with these edge rushers is these are my 5 guys in tier 1. These are the guys that I would take in with the number 1 overall pick, with the number 2 overall pick. Like, that's who any one of these 5 guys could go to Houston at number 2, I think is the best way to say it. Now, there are some guys that are more polarizing that might not go because maybe of some concerns that they have, and we'll talk about that. But honestly, I feel so confident in these 5 guys that I just think that this is one of the best edge classes I've ever seen, I've ever scouted. And so let's just hop right into it. At number 1, in tier 1, I have Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech. When we look at Tyree Wilson, he is just an insanely versatile player. You can literally play him all over the defensive line. Do you want him to line up at a 4-eye? He can do it. Do you want him to line up at a 5-tech? He can do that. You want to line him up outside as a wide 9 standing up? He can do that. You want to line him up as a 7-tech? He can do that. And honestly, because of his wingspan, on a pure pass set, on like 3rd and 9, like where it's pure pass rush, dude, put him in as a 3-eye. Put him in at a 3-tech. Like, he can do it all when it comes to pure passing sets. And with his frame, he could even put on like 10 pounds. I look at Tyree Wilson and I go, imagine he puts on and he's playing at 285. If he's playing at 285, I think he could still put on a little bit of weight. And if you can get him to 285, watch out, because now you can bump him in even more inside. Play him at 3. Play him as a 2. Like, as a 3-eye. Maybe not a 2. But like 3-eye, 3-tech. Now you're looking at a guy who can take a guard one-on-one. There's no guard in the NFL that's going to be able to take him straight up. He's faster than you. And then when you look at his wingspan and like how long his arms are, they grade in like, I think like 98th, 99th percentile, 35.5-inch arms. He gets to your chest before you do. And then you add on top of that, the guy's insanely strong. One of my favorite reps is whenever he gets to match up with a guard who's pulling in coverage, because he just lays those guys out and gets to the runner. You're not going to move him like at all. Now, a couple of concerns with him is like, here's the thing, right? He does everything really, 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 really well. But he's not elite at anything. He doesn't have an elite first step or anything like that. The real thing with Tyree Wilson is just the fact that the guy is insanely athletic, and here's the thing. You give him to the right team, you give him to the right situation, you put him in the right coaching, and he can be elite. And that's the thing that you're banking with Tyree Wilson. Of the guys on my list, he has the second highest ceiling in my projections. And like, if I don't know if he makes it past Seattle at 5. Everything depends on how you view Jalen Carter, but like, Tyree Wilson at 5 makes a ton of sense to the Seattle Seahawks. That's assuming that all four of the quarterbacks go 1 through 4. Like, he's just impossible to block. That's the thing. He's just someone that is incredibly hard to block. And the best part is the measurables. Is he's got all of the tools to be there. Like, again, he's incredibly raw. And if you were to give him the tools of a more polished prospect, someone that's later on this list, we'll get to him, like Will Anderson is an insanely polished prospect. He's got all of the tools, all of the techniques, and all of those things. Tyree Wilson is more of a, moldable prospect. You need to coach up those tools. You need to help him with his hands, with his feet, with his step. But outside of that, he's got insane bend. He's got insane speed to power, all of those things. And like I said, he's incredibly strong, and his frame can handle more weight. I love this kid, and I think that he's great. And yeah. Moving on to my number 2 edge rusher in this class, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be really surprised with this, but for me, it's Lucas Van Ness, the redshirt sophomore out of Iowa. Now, a lot of you are going to be thinking, what the heck? A redshirt sophomore who didn't even start at Iowa? Okay, let's calm that down. One, Iowa's dumb, right? Lucas Van Ness, on every rep that he played, was the best player on the defense. Iowa has a tendency to play their seniors, like seniority, guys who've been there around longer. Those guys get reps, not the best guys get reps. And that's just absolutely stupid. It's just dumb. But when you look at a guy who is literally a ball of clay, a raw ball of clay that you can mold into literally any type of edge rusher that you want, Lucas Van Ness is that guy. He's got crazy burst, he's got crazy bend, he's got crazy quickness, he's got crazy change of direction. And the best part about all of those things is that's not just stuff that you're seeing on tape. All of that is matched by the testing. The guy's just insane. Crazy 3-cone, crazy broad jump, crazy 40-yard dash, like ideal arm length, huge hands, ideal height and weight. His frame could even take more weight on. Like, it's phenomenal. Where can you play him? Wherever you want. Like, do you want to play him as a wide guy, like a wide 9, a 7 tech? You can do that. He's slim enough and quick enough and fast enough to beat tackles to the corner and to do that. You want him to put on 10 pounds and maybe play at, 280 or 270, which is, I think, really where he's probably playing at, because, he's at 270. I'm sorry. You want him to play at 280 and bump inside and play a 5 tech, play a 4-eye. He can do that against the tackle. Absolutely, he has that skill set. You want him to put on 20 pounds, play at 290, and now you're starting to looking at him as playing as a 3 tech, as a 3-eye. He can do that. And why do I say that? Because he did all of that for Iowa, and no one could stop him. When you talk about a guy whose 2021 tape is like by far and away the best thing in this class, like that's what he is. His skill ceiling is, I think, honestly, the best edge rusher in this class. The problem with him is that he is, one, insanely young, and he does not have a ton of play time. He is a redshirt sophomore, and in 2021 and 2022 only played 450-ish snaps in both years, and at no point in time was he really considered a starter. So as a rotational guy who's lacking maybe some pass rushing plan, he doesn't have very many moves. He is a speed to power guy. Like, that's what he is. He's a bull rusher. That's what he does. Not speed to power. He's a bull rusher. And again, at the NFL, bull rushes win all the time. Like, that's how you win, is a bull rush. It's speed to power. Like, that's those things. It's one of the things that's saying that, like, I'm sorry, he's a bull rusher, not a speed to power. I got to get that right. But the thing is that if you can help him develop a speed to power, he's fast enough to develop a speed move. Not really like super crazy, but like if you can help him create different moves to his game, if you can help him with his hands, if you can help him with his feet, and really just take advantage of the fact that he is strong, he is bendy, he's incredibly effective in the stunts. This guy's skill ceiling is insanely high. And when you take into consideration that the kid is still only 21 years old, you're really and truthfully getting yourself a ball of clay that you can hopefully turn into a 15 sack a year guy. And that's what I truly think his skill set is. So if you're looking for, like, again, I'm projecting upsides here, and I love what Tyree Wilson brings, and that's how he's my 1A, and Lucas Van Ness, that's why he's my 1B. Now, for number 2 or number 3 edge rusher on my list, we're going to go to Alabama, and we're going to talk about Will Anderson Jr. Let's start off we're going to talk about the dip in production from this year to last year. And a lot of your stats guys are going to be like, he didn't look as good this year than he did last year, blah, blah, blah. That's because Alabama absolutely did Will Anderson incredibly dirty this year. Will Anderson is a stand-up, outside linebacker, wide 9, 7 tech kind of edge rusher. He really does not have the frame or the weight to play as a 5 tech right over the tackle. Like, that's just not what he does. But if you look at his snap counts and what he did at Alabama last year, that's what they asked him to do. Line up over the tackle, line up on the outside shoulder of the tackle, and initiate those fights with the tackle in pass rushing sets immediately. And that's not where his skill set is going to look at the NFL level. What you need him to do is to line up out wide and let him use his speed, let him use his athleticism, let him use his crazy like technique that he already has to really bend and burst around the corner. That's what he does. That's what he does well. Now, he's not the bendiest guy, because he's not. He's a little stiff in the hips, and that's where his speed comes into play, because remember, he's like really, really fast, I believe. Like a 4.6 40. That's really good. Again, really good speed when you look at the edge rushing position. The guy does that really, really well, but he's just a technician. He's got a good first step. He's got good hands. He's just overall solid. Like, that's literally what it says in my notes. I don't know if you can see that. Just overall solid. That's what it is. He's not I don't project him as being this, like, superstar. I don't project him being this a 14, 15 sack guy in the league, but like, and I'll caveat that in a little bit, but like, in my eyes, if you were to get Will Anderson and put him in a Robert Saleh style defense where you can put him on the weak side and tell him, you know what? Go after the passer every single rep. Forget about the run, pin your ears back, and go get after the Packers. Go get after the passer. I'm sorry, not the Packers. Go get the quarterback. This guy can do insane. If you can tell the safety and the will linebacker to, hey, you're responsible for the run, kind of like what the Jets do, like, that's where he's going to excel. That's where he's going to be your 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 sack guy. Now, if you're asking him to be an every down edge rusher, really play in the run and to do those things, and not have him just pin his ears back and go after the passer every rep, that's where I look at him more as a middling type of guy, where the other guys I think can really truly be 3-down backs. But with a lot of these teams running, these weak side rushers are just going after the passers, and the weak side linebacker and the safeties are going to be responsible for the run, and then the strong side pass rusher, is more of your run stopping guy. Like that's a perfect fit for him. This is why, like, if the Houston Texans don't go quarterback at 2, this is why Will Anderson would make a ton of sense for them. We know that DeMeco Ryans runs a very similar scheme as to whatever the New York Jets run. And with that knowledge, you can see how a guy like Will Anderson would fit in there. And like a great comp for him would be kind of like a Yannick Ngakoue type of guy. Yannick Ngakoue, every rep is just going after the passer. And that's what Will Anderson does. Don't ask him to play a 5-tech. Don't ask him to play a 5-eye. Don't ask him to play a 4. That's not using him to the best of his ability. That's a disservice to what he can do. And so really, and like just truthfully, just use him with what he's best at. Put him in a position to succeed. Play him wide 9, play him as a 7, and there you go. Beautiful. On to my number 4 edge rusher in this class, and that is Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Alabama. Now, Alabama out of Georgia. Jesus, I'm about to get roasted for that. Here's the thing. Calling Nolan Smith an edge rusher is a little bit of a disservice to him. It's the same thing with calling Lucas Van Ness an edge rusher. It's a disservice to him. Lucas Van Ness, defensive lineman. Nolan Smith, freak athlete, right? Here's the thing. Nolan Smith is going to have a lot of doubters at the next level because he's small. Like, that's just what he's 6'3", 235. He's not the biggest guy. But here's the thing. When you take everything into consideration, and I mean everything into consideration, he's crazy at everything. Every measurable that you can have, he's crazy at. Bend, the bendiest person in this class. Speed, fastest person in this class. Like, everything. The only thing that he doesn't have is strength. Now, here's the thing. Before this year, really, or even last year, I would have had a really, really hard time with projecting Nolan Smith to the NFL as an effective pass rusher. I would have looked at him more like a Micah Parsons kind of player, and that's not a bad thing. Micah Parsons is an insane athlete, and you can project him to be kind of like Micah Parsons because that's kind of like what Nolan Smith measures out to be. Nolan Smith is still smaller than Micah Parsons, really. And Micah Parsons is not a full-time edge rusher. Like, that's the other thing. I think a better comp to Micah Parsons is Hassan Reddick with the Philadelphia Eagles. Hassan Reddick is 2 inches shorter, is like 10 pounds lighter than what Nolan Smith is, but he also got 16 sacks this year because he was just asked to be a full-time edge rusher. And here's where Hassan Reddick, and specifically where Nolan Smith can win as an edge rusher, is to speed. There are maybe 4, maybe 5 tackles in the NFL who are fast enough and long enough in their break and in their steps to beat Nolan Smith to the corner, to beat Nolan Smith to the edge. Nolan Smith is either going to get a ton of holding calls or a ton of sacks if he's utilized correctly. And again, when you look at all of the measurables, every single test backs this up. A 4.39 40-yard dash, a 41.5-inch vertical, a 10.8 broad jump. I wish he did the 3-cone because I would love to see his 3-cone time. Everything matches up with that kind of skill set, that Hassan Reddick type of guy. And Hassan just had 16 sacks last year. Here's the real problem, and here's the concern why he's not going to be a scheme fit for every team. Not every team has that standing up on the outside, wide 9, really beat the tackle to the edge type of edge rusher. The other thing is he doesn't really have a true speed to power skill set that is the primary winning edge move in the NFL. Speed to power is what wins in the NFL, and he just doesn't have that at his frame. But again, if you can put him in a scheme that can take advantage of all of those things, watch out. he's going to do incredible things. And then the best part is he's still, even though he's 6'3", 238, he's still really, really good against the run. That's because he went to Georgia. And then the other thing with Nolan Smith, you got to know that when you draft him, you're drafting your captain. Day one, he's going to come in and he's going to be a leader in that room. He was the leader of the whole Georgia program while he was there. He is everything that you hear about Nolan Smith is high character, high character, high character. Nolan Smith would be an asset to any defense that he goes to as long as the defensive coordinator is smart enough to understand how to use him. Nolan Smith is a freak athlete, and I can't wait to see what he does at the next level. And then going on to the last prospect that we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about Nolan Smith, the edge. No, I'm sorry, Miles Murphy. Sorry, not Nolan Smith. The edge out of Clemson. And here is the first thing you have to say about all of the Clemson defensive players, but specifically about Miles Murphy. This projection for Miles Murphy is based on his 2021 tape, not really his 2022 tape. The entire Clemson defensive program took a step back when Venables left. And it makes a ton of sense. When you lose a really good defensive coordinator, your defense tends to get worse. But when you look at his 2021 tape, this is a top 10 pick. Literally, he's a top 10 pick. He has great hands. He's got great speed to power. He's great. His hands are great when they're fighting, like just to create space to get to the inside of the chest. Really good at that. He's got great speed to power. He's got pretty solid first step, pretty solid bend, you know. He just great against the run. 6'5", 275, so ideal size. You can bump him inside, I think, honestly, on passing sets if you want to play him at a 3-eye. As a 3-tech or a 4-eye or something like that. He can take care of your B-gap. You can put him out wide as a 9-tech. You can put him inside as a 5-tech, as a 4-tech, as a 4-eye. You can do all of those things. But he didn't test well. And the biggest concern with what you're going to see out of a guy like Miles Murphy is you're trusting the tape over the testing. And that's a hard thing to do for NFL teams. They have a really hard time trusting the tape instead of trusting they have a hard time of trusting the tape wholeheartedly and ignoring the testing. It's two parts of the equation, and Miles Murphy has A-plus tape specifically in 2021. But then you look at his 2022 tape, it's not as good. Then you look at his testing, not as good. That's where he is one of the most polarizing prospects in this class. Because if you're betting on him looking like 2021 Miles Murphy, which reminded me a ton of a guy like, Max Crosby or Rashawn Gary or something along those lines, like, if you're banking on his 2021 tape, that's beautiful. Like, that's awesome because that's what he looks like. But if you're trying to make a better evaluation, including 2022, I don't know. That being said, I'm an upside guy. If you got a good defensive line coach, if you got a good defensive coordinator, you can turn Miles Murphy into a legitimate weapon for your team in every aspect of the game when it comes to rundowns, everything. He is a true 3-down edge. You can play him on the weak side. You can play him on the strong side. He has the skills to do both insanely well. He can be the Batman to somebody's Robin, or he can be the Robin to somebody's Batman. Hell, you can build a defensive line like Philly had last year where there's just two Batmans, right? And so we're ending the list with Miles Murphy, but that doesn't, Will McDonald almost made this list. There's so many, and I mean so many good edge rushers in this class. Keon White, Tuli Tuipulotu, B.J. Ojolari, Derek Hall. There's so many guys in this class that really are going to do really, really good things for the New York Jets. I would not be surprised if we were to look to take an edge in the second round instead of going center because of how deep deep this edge class is. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Again, as you can see, I love this edge class a lot. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And last but not least, go Jets.